Hi there, it's Kim from Crafty Roo Designs, and today we're going to be looking at different ways to add your distressed oxides to your polyplates. Today we're going to be using the mini rectangle polyplates, just popped onto a stamp base. Alongside our oxides, we know that oxides have got that lovely grey casing. We're using twisted citron, peacock feathers and villainous potion. And this is what we're going to be creating. We're going to be using those inks to create fabulous effects like this one. So we're going to be layering up our ink. I'll show you different ways to do that. We're also I'm going to show you how to apply it using a tissue. And then finally, we're going to apply using a brayer. So first up, I'm going to show you how to layer your inks one colour at a time. For this, you're going to want to cover your entire polyplate with your palest colour and then give it a quick spritz using water. When you spritz, you want to make sure your polyplate is away from your spritzer, about 30 centimetres. Give it a nice gentle spritz until you get bubbles, and then we're going to stamp it onto our card. When we're using oxides on our polyplates, or in general, you need to make sure you clean your plate between each colour, because we don't want to contaminate our inks, because that not only has ink on it, it has water too, and that will damage our ink pads. So make sure you give your polyplate a really good clean between adding your colours. Next up, I'm going to add my peacock feathers. So I'm just going to add a little bit around the edge. You'll notice I'm taking the ink to the opposite side of the plate. I feel this gives me greater control, and you get a more feathered edge to that ink rather than the straight edge of your ink pad, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go all the way around my polyplate, creating a nice frame. Again, I'm going to spritz this and then line it up on top of the image I've already created. Now, if you're using a stamp press, this would be really easy. So finally, I'm going to pop my villainous potion around the edge. I just want a very narrow little border of this. I'm going to go all the way around my plate like I did with my peacock feathers, and spritz it and pop it onto the top of my design. Now I am going to also clean up my plate because I've got a little bit of ink where it shouldn't be. For each of those layers we actually spritz between, but if you don't, you get a completely different look. So we're going to do that one now. I'm going to start exactly the same. We're going to put a layer of our twisted citron on the base, and I'm going to spritz that one. Next up, we're going to add our peacock feathers again, but this time I'm not going to spritz, because when you add your ink, the ink actually leaves the lovely textures from your ink pad on your polyplate. So that is what we're going to use to create a bit more texture on our design. So you can see there all those lovely textures. If I hold it over a white piece of paper, you can see, look at that all that lovely texture, and that will be transferred onto our poly plate, onto our print that we're going to create. So I'm just going to line it up and stamp away. And then we're going to add our villainous potion again, no spritzing. And there you go, you can see the difference between when we spritz, the one on the left, and when we don't spritz on our different layers of colour with the one on the right. So choice is yours. Which do you prefer? So if layering your colours is not your cup of tea, how do we go about adding all our colours at once? Well, this is what we're going to do next. This time we're going to use a tissue to add our different layers of ink. You could use a blending tool, you could use your brushes, but I just use good old kitchen roll. So start off, we're going to add our lovely twisted citron as our base layer, as we have done for the others. And then we're going to grab a bit of tissue. We're going to use our tissue to pick up our peacock feathers and apply that directly to our poly plate. So you can see I'm just adding little bits of peacock feathers as I go along using my tissue. And now we're going to add our villainous potion. We're going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to find a clean bit of tissue to use and then just add by dabbing the ink onto the poly plate. Now again, this is where you decide, do you want to spritz or not to spritz? I prefer to spritz, so I'm going to spritz my poly plate and then stamp it on. I think this needs a frame, so I'm just going to go around it with villainous potion. I have cleaned my poly plate before I added my ink. So the last technique we're going to talk about is brayering our ink onto our polyplate. Really simple to do, really fun as well. We're going to start by covering our polyplate in Twisted Citron as we have done for our other ones. We're just going to make sure we've got a lovely base colour. You could brayer this on, but I want the colour to go all over, so it's easier just to pop it on using the ink pad. I'm then going to grab my brayer and the peacock feathers, and then just lightly load my brayer with a little bit of ink so I can apply it to my polyplate. Again, make sure you clean your brayer up before doing the next colour. So I'm going to add my Villainous Potion. I'm just going to add a little bit less this time, just to create that lovely deep purple there. And as always, we have the great question, don't we? To spritz or not to spritz? I choose to spritz. And don't forget, when you've got lighter and darker shades on your polyplate, make sure you lift your polyplate towards the darker shade. That way you know no ink is going to run over that lighter shade area. So there you have it, 4 really easy ways of adding Distress Oxides to your polyplates. Well, that's it from me today. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to check out our other videos, and I'll see you again soon.